Hello.
Testing, testing.
Make sure we tell Dan.
And we're supposed to leave our mic. It's 6:30 on Wednesday, December 8th. I'd like to call the City of McLendon-Chisholm City Council meeting to order. Mr. Tucker, could you lead us in the invocation, please?
Please bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us this time to come together. May you watch over us and encourage us and help us resolve some of the issues that we're seeing in this small town of ours. Please watch over all our first responders and military people. And we pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. Mr. Davis? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. I'd like to state that we please ask that the rules of decorum be in effect and respect each other's words and listening. Thank you. Citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments, Shelley? Thank you. We'll start with item number 5, the Public Safety Building Status Report. Mr. Spires from AGCM, if you'd come forward. Yep.
Oh. Hey, how you doing? So we are tracking those. I believe the permanent electrical panels did ship yesterday, so they should be in. But really, it's just minor issues at this point. I know the backup generator sounds like a big one, but Otherwise, Chief, I think we're pretty much fully operational. Of course, we do have a 2-year warranty, so we will still be involved in the warranty. AGCM will until we want to be involved until you guys retire. So, but otherwise, like I said, it's really, really well. The council, we appreciate your guys' leadership and decision making there, so it really helped out. But any questions for me? I will at the next. We will be coming to the next council meeting in January, and I will have the full updated budget, final budget and everything put together. So we just had some moving pieces this week that have affected it. So, but
When we get together a date on we want to do the ribbon cutting, will you be here?
Yes.
Or, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But no,
Exactly. Yeah.
AGCM,
Exactly.
we are behind the scenes. It's
We-
everybody.
We would still like to try to get together, you guys to draw up or put up something that we can put on our Facebook page and on our Instagram page and all that other stuff.
Oh, absolutely. You guys are already on ours, so yeah, we can get you guys something. But we want to thank you guys again, AGCM. We really appreciate you guys having the confidence in us, and glad we were able to perform for you.
Thank you.
All right,
I
you.
think we actually need a round of applause for Chief Simmons and for AGCM. It was a long year, I know, and it was a great team. It was good to see the teamwork, and I commend you both for doing such a great job.
A lot of good compliments from what I understand from the citizens around here.
Oh, people are driving by and they're going, wow, that's gorgeous.
This morning, we had Chief Sis from ESD 6 in Gregg County. They came out to tour the station to grab some ideas, and so they're in the process of getting ready to start building a station there. So we've got chiefs popping in, council members from other cities, because they're in the process of looking at developing some stations. So there's a lot of people coming in and a lot of people impressed with what we were able to do.
I don't think there's anybody more impressed than the 5 people sitting here right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Does anyone of the council have any items they'd like to extract from the agenda? All right, without further ado, we could go ahead and someone make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a
we got-
second?
I'll second that.
Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Public hearing, item 7.1. A public hearing to consider the application of MC Trilogy Texas LLC requesting a change in zoning from A agricultural to PD Planned Development District for 2 tracts of property. Tract 1 is 100.9.907 acres, which is located north of FM 550 and generally east of Pullen Road. And Tract 2, 69.143 acres, located north of FM 550 and west of Pullen Road, further described as county ID numbers 12959 and 12960. Zoning of the subject property will amend the official zoning map of the city of McLendon-Chisholm. If I have anyone that would like to come forward and make a statement about the public hearing, please state your name, address for the record, and if you live in the city limits of McLendon-Chisholm. Do I have anyone that would like to come forward? All right, I close the public hearing. Item for consideration, 8.1. I'm going to be reordering those. We'll start with 8.1, however. Discussion and action regarding approval of the application of MC Trilogy Texas LLC, requesting a change in zoning from A agricultural to PD Planned Development District for 2 tracts of property. Tract 1, 109.907 acres, located north of FM 550 and generally east of Pullen Road. And Tract 2, 69.143 acres, located north of FM 550 and west of Pullen Road, further described as county ID numbers 12959 and 12960. Zoning of the subject property will amend the official zoning map of the city of McLendon-Chisholm. Mr. Coker, do you have any comments? Is your mic on? Thank you.
unlike Sean.
Please
It
go ahead
didn't
and
show
start
that-
over.
It said it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it
Please
is
start
now.
over.
So it complies with the development agreement that we have with the property owner. It complies with the regulations in our zoning ordinance as amended by the development agreement. It also complies with the comprehensive plan because it's an area that is a master planned community. All of those things said, the staff has recommended approval, the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval, and therefore we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, and Mr. Kippett, do you have anything to add? Council members, do you have any questions?
I do not.
P and Z has approved it, so I'll entertain a motion. I think you can just abbreviate to approve the application.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan development under section 8.1. So that would work. Good enough.
Approve the zoning.
Zoning.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Item 8.2, action regarding the adopting an ordinance approving the zoning for a planned development district for Trilogy LLC. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the planning development district for Trilogy LLC. Zoning for planning.
The ordinance.
Yeah,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any debate, any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. None, sorry. Okay, item 8.3, request from Community Waste Disposal for a market adjustment effective January 1st, 2022. Mr. Romer, welcome.
Excuse me. Mayor, City Council, City Staff, my name is Greg Raymer. And there we go. Greg Raymer, and I'm the president of Community Waste Disposal. And I am here this evening to discuss with you the upcoming rate adjustment. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that CWD has faced over the past 12 months. And undoubtedly, you have seen that in our services. The four things that we have dealt with are the pandemic, a residential trash volume increase, the February FEMA declared disaster, and the current labor shortage. Starting with the effects of the pandemic, these are our caseloads of positive tested cases since the beginning of the pandemic, which our first case was April of 20. You can see we peaked in January with 20 cases that month, came back in August with 18 more. In the month of November, I'm very pleased to say, came down to 2. Our cumulative effect has been 98 cases. CWD, Mayor, employs 300 people. So sometime since April of 20, we have been without about 1/3 of our workforce. The residential trash volumes, as you might expect, increased beginning with the pandemic. The reasons are painfully clear. The country closed, people went home. We stopped going to Olive Garden. We continued to go to Kroger and CVS, and we ordered a lot of things online. Consequently, in the homes that we service, which is 187,000, and McLendon-Chisholm is part of that 187,000, the volumes went up approximately 18% at the residential curbside. If that wasn't enough, there was the February ice storm, which I call the FEMA declared disaster. The 6 weeks before, you can see the tonnage that we collected from our homes versus the 6 weeks following. We saw a 34% increase. This came from damage to homes, from the flooding, people putting out carpet, sheetrock, various items within their home, and vegetation. Many shrubs, plants, trees died in this period, and it was sort of a slow roll of coming out. As people found time to tear up plants and put them on the curb, they slowly did. but we saw a 34% volume in that. The phone calls went up. You can see here we, in that FEMA declared disaster, had 20,000 phone calls as compared to pre-pandemic, about 11,600. This caused a slower answering of the phone. And you might have heard a constituent say that CWD is not answering their phone or they're slow to answer it. That's because of the increase in volume. I'm pleased to report that today we're down to almost pre-pandemic, about 13,400. And it's noteworthy to say that we haven't added any new city contracts in this period. We pretty much put a freeze on all new business, other than the growth in our cities, such as yours. The labor shortage we are feeling, and we're feeling a severe reduction in applications. You can see here that in 2019 we averaged 105 applications a month. When the pandemic started, that dropped down to 94, and this year it's been 70. And I can report to you that this week, I think there's been about 3 applications for employment at CWD. So shockingly enough, we might see this actually get worse as people stop applying for work. So what happened at McLendon-Chisholm? The rest of that was our universe of DFW trash hauling cities. As you may know, we don't service anywhere but the DFW Metroplex, so that's you and your neighbors. But here is the city of McLendon-Chisholm. Pre-pandemic, 95 tons. Post-pandemic, 104. And then when the FEMA declared disaster came, a 39% increase in volume. Pretty much matching the volumes that we saw consistently throughout the company in different cities. At this point, I would like to bring up a little bit about something that has occurred in your town that I think is on your mind. We've had some reports of recyclables being mixed in with the trash. And I mean, I want you to know that we're very well aware of it. I know you folks and your city staff communicates with Jason. But we have moved the driver out. That crew that was committing the offense on a more frequent basis that can be tolerated is gone and has been replaced. And the other thing I would like to report is that the tonnage in 2020 was 417 tons. So that's the tonnage of recyclables that we collected from McLendon-Chisholm. In 2021, projecting for the rest of the year, which is only another 3 weeks, we're going to collect 453 tons. So that's an increase of 9%. So what I'm communicating to you there is we know that it has happened, and once is too many. Don't misunderstand me. It is that we have zero tolerance at CWD for that kind of activity, but it's not systemic in that we saw a 9% increase in the tonnage overall from the city of McLendon-Chisholm. I'm pleased to say that the grievances are down, and we compare grievances to 1,000 service opportunities. So if we drive by 1,000 homes and provide 1,000 services, we compare the grievances we receive. So you can see that the pre-pandemic, we were at 1.7. That's not a real long period of time. That's when we started, pretty much, because we started in January of 19. It did drop to 1.57, 1.6, and now we're down to 0.75. We think it can be lower, and we think it will go lower as we make our way through the current situation. So what have we done about all this? In April 21st of 2021, I did write a letter to the city reporting various things that are going on with CWD and some of our reactions to it. In June of this year, we did an 18% driver-helper wage increase. That was unasked for on behalf of the driver and helper staff at CWD, which is about 125 people. But to keep people from leaving the company and try to attract more to fill vacancies, we felt like we needed to do that. And frankly, I think there's more that needs to come as we see we still have too many vacancies and not enough applications. In June of this year, simultaneously, we did a 25% increase in the wages paid to customer service. That was in reaction to we need to have a larger, better department to answer the phone and talk to the constituents. April through August, our recruitment advertising budget was increased by 215%. In April and May, we bought 5 brand-new residential trash trucks. These were not replacements. These are not for new business. These are strictly to pick up the extra volume of trash and recyclables that's now at the curb that wasn't before. So we need more equipment to pick it up, and we purchased those. They cost a couple of $1 million, but even maybe more importantly, they cost about $150,000 a month just to operate. In July, we increased our customer service staffing by 100%. We went from 9 to 18 people. And then recently in November, I did follow up covering quite a few of these things with a letter dated November 11th of 2021. So this evening, again, I'm here to answer any questions about service, but also about the January 1st annual rate adjustment. In the contract, we try to use indices that are as transparent as possible, meaning we use mechanisms that you can go to without talking to us and actually determine what should happen to your rates. When we give a city a quote, such as you, on day one, that quote is meant to be good for 12 months, and then every 12 months gets adjusted based on the increase in cost of doing business. The indices we use are CPI, a DFW less fuel or less energy, so there's no fuel change in the CPI we use. Then we use the fuel change based on the Gulf Coast diesel rates and the disposal rate at the city of Garland. And then below that, you can see the CPI without fuel has gone up 4.4%. Fuel is up 47%. And the only good news is the city of Garland did not raise their rates in the period of time that the contract calls for us to look at. I think it's, so this is consequently causing a change in the rate from $23.82 to $26.62 per month for the residential trash collection. And that's for trash and recycling, by the way. That's everything we do for the residential. I think you have in your packet a copy of this letter dated November 11th, addressed to Shelley Green. And it has all of the documentation that is called for in the agreement between us. But if you recall it, I would draw your attention to, I think this is probably page 4, which is a worksheet that shows the exact numbers and how they apply to the rate and various things like that. And I can talk more about this if needed. The final thing I want to say about it is this rate adjustment in no way has any reflection of the cost increases that I've discussed, such as our higher wages by 18%, our 5 trucks that we bought, the increasing of staff. This is strictly straight out of the contract and the language within the contract on an annual cost change. So, Mayor, that concludes my presentation, and I would be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I know that the Extreme Green event, I went to it a couple times and dropped stuff off, and that was a well-oiled machine. So that was a wonderful thing that we're going to make sure our citizens take advantage of, because I'm not sure how much, do you know how much our citizens dropped off for that? Are you familiar?
Well, I don't have it with me tonight, but yes, we do. And normally we send you a letter.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that has not occurred. I'll follow up on that. But yes, we know how much was collected.
Okay, good. And my other question was, for yard debris, is it in our contract that people can put yard debris out front? That's okay, or how's that work?
I don't believe we have a yard waste collection program, i.e. it's taken to a compost facility.
Mhm.
I could stand to be corrected on that, but I don't think so.
Because y'all pick up our yard debris, I know that.
And yes, we do pick up yard debris with the trash.
Okay.
There's normally a limit on the volumes of yard debris that can be put out. Well, I don't have it exactly right in front of me, but we'll collect it with the trash.
And does it need to be bundled with twine or anything?
You got me on that one. Probably. And normally it's 2 by 2 by 4, not in excess of 50 pounds.
Because we have, when you're walking the neighborhood, you see, 6-foot tall things of debris, and it sits there and sits there. And I think people just don't know that they need to bundle it up, so it's easier for your workers to get it.
Or do you all have like a schedule, like first Wednesday of the month, where people can know that that's the time to put it out?
The exact schedule in McLendon-Chisholm I don't have with me tonight. I mean, I'm making some notes, and by gosh, we'll be sure to follow up with you. But yet the answer is definitely yes, there's a schedule, be it monthly or it's picked up every week.
Quarterly?
Well, it's probably not quarterly. Usually the minimum we offer is monthly. So I'm guessing it's a minimum of monthly, if not weekly, with volume limitations.
And is it just, like, how is that defined? Is it just yard debris, like trees and branches, or is it washing machines or mattresses, or how do you?
Usually we call it bulk and brush
Okay,
with some sort of volume limit.
okay.
Yes.
But there is a set schedule, you just have to get with us on what that is?
Yes, I don't have it with me, the exact.
That should be in our contract, correct?
Yeah, it was the last time that we signed the contract. It was in there for sure. The scheduling was there for sure.
I think something like that we probably
And
need to put on the
it's all-
website.
It's all defined.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just get it on the
When it's
website.
coming due, so
Just
people
a
can know.
summary of what is allowable and what.
Or
Yeah.
even just like a reminder that this next week is bulk brush pickup day. or
Yeah, I don't
whatever.
think we have that. I think it's just when you put your trash out, you can put your bulk out. Rick, you seem to,
denied, and while I don't have a lot of history with this contract, I believe what he told me was that if you bundle it, subject to some limitation on quantities, if you have it strapped or something where they can pick it up, that it's picked up every time your garbage is picked up. If you exceed that amount, then you need to call in for a special pickup that you would have to pay for, and you would base your schedule the pickup on the arrangements you made at the time you call in, or those that exceed the quantity limits. If you want to do that immediately with the company, you can do that.
From a personal experience, I found that after cutting my lawn, I usually will rake up all the grass, and it constitutes about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 bags. And I've had no problems with pickups on that. I bag it and put it out in the curb, and I've had no difficulties with them picking that up. So I'll give you maybe a sense of what, I think there's a lot of flexibility in what the guys do, but they're very, very flexible in terms of picking that kind of thing up.
If I may, to answer your question, it's 1 cubic yard each week
Okay.
of
The
bulk and brush.
The reason why I asked that, I live in a neighborhood, a community that's not developed. And what people do is the homes that are under construction, the trash bins that the builders provide, a lot of times as people moving in, they have TV boxes and all types of other trash. I was wondering if we had it in our contract where we do bulk pickup that's not limited to a cubic yard or something, have to be bundled, so that when people have washing machines or refrigerators, they can actually plan to set that out, whether it's a quarter out of a month. I'm sure we have to wait till it's time to renew the contract if that's not a part of the contract, but it's something to consider because it do cause an issue with trash and debris in the community, because once it's overfilled, depending on the weather and what the builder's already using, it could be an issue. That's why I asked.
I know I've in the past called the company if I have something like that. Like when I've moved a lot, I've moved like 13 times. And I'll just call that company and they'll say, okay, just put your moving boxes, we'll break them down for us. And they'll go ahead and do that. So I think a lot of times but when you've just moved in somewhere, that's the last thing you're worrying about. You just want to get everything emptied out. So I think that it would be good for us to put on our website what people can, put out for their trash. But I do know we have a link to the CWD on our website.
So, Councilman, a washing machine is about 1 cubic yard. So you could put a washing machine out every week, or the equivalent thereof. A refrigerator would just be looked at as 1 cubic yard. And there is an unusual accumulation fee. So if you happen to have more than 1 cubic yard, you can call CWD and make arrangements for your extra materials to get collected.
Okay. I think we just need to provide that communication.
Mm-hmm.
And their website does have some of that information on it as well.
I know everybody just don't take the time to research the how-to.
Yes.
And, again, it'll just be
I'm with it.
trash for me to look at, and I don't like
Part of
that.
any time you do construction.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do we need to make a motion to approve the rate adjustment? All right, I'll take a motion from the floor for a market adjustment of the price for trash pickup.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rate increase for the trash pickup for CWD.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I was late coming in, so I did not grasp any of it. So is it okay if I not vote? Because I don't know what I'm voting
Yes,
for.
that's correct. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rumor.
All right, for item 8.4, discussion of future law enforcement needs. Mr. Tucker has withdrawn this item and we'll put it on for a future agenda when the mayor is present. Okay, item 8.5, ordinance adopting 2021-2040 comprehensive plan. Ms. Green, if you could go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. When our comprehensive plan was prepared, it was approved by the council, but we did not pass an ordinance at that time. I guess we just didn't realize we needed to. And so recently, Mr. Coker asked me for a copy of it, and I discovered that we didn't have one. And so that's what this is. This is an official ordinance to adopt our comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Can I please get a motion from the floor to adopt the comprehensive plan?
Sure. I'll make a motion to adopt the comprehensive, or the ordinance of the comprehensive plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I have like on one of the maps, I know we've talked about this, but it's not correct. So I know it's an evolving thing. It will just keep changing as we go because some of the things are not correct or they move forward or whatever. But the water on the map, it states that part of it is RCH, the other part is High Point Ranch or High Point Estates or whatever it is, High Point Water.
Point water.
And I would like to get that information looked at because I believe the map is incorrect. But I'm trying to get with somebody to figure out where the map is.
Why don't you get with Mr. Coker, and then you can go over what you know
Yeah.
from Mr. Pullen, and then you guys can make the potential change if required.
Will that affect the ordinance?
It won't affect it, but I just want to make sure that we are able, things that do change, we need to get those corrected. as soon as
And
possible.
I agree. Mike Coker, representing the city in this case. Madam Chair and members of the council, anytime we amend any component of the comprehensive plan, it requires an ordinance to do the amendment. So if we change the map, bear with me, if you adopt the ordinance tonight, which I recommend that you do,
Yes,
and we come up with a different map, then we bring that back through planning and zoning and comes to the council for an amendment, and that'll be done by ordinance. Just like, since I've been working here, every time we've amended the comprehensive plan, whether it's the future land use map or a text piece of it, we actually always did that by ordinance. So,
Well, that way you have the record of everything.
yeah, everything.
absolutely, and it makes it really a whole lot better for the community, because then they're looking at the real thing rather than something that's three changes behind.
That if it's, hey, you know what, High Point was here on the map, but they're supposed to be here, that's different. That's not a typo. That's a change to an amendment to the map. But, you know, if it's just somebody if everything is correct on the map, but High Point is here and RCH is there, and that's just a typo, we can do what's called a scrivener's ordinance, and that just corrects and it adopts the map with the right names or something is misspelled or something like that. So I would want to know what, you know, we're looking at changing, because it's I don't want to make something more difficult than it has to be. So
Well, one of the reasons I'm asking is because it is stating on the map, the coloration states that it stops in the middle of our neighborhood where I live.
yeah, what's not?
That RCH stops and everything is
Oh.
this way and everything this way is High Point, but I actually pay RCH, but it shows that I don't. And then I've also heard that not only does it not stop there, it goes all the way around. So it's like this, on this side of 550 is High Point, but on that side of 550.
So we just need to make sure
Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah, that's what
okay.
I'm just
And
asking.
and that's fine, because as Mr. Coker said, it should be right, but I'm simply saying is if it's wrong because of something that's just a typo or a mislabel, that's different than the midpoint between those being over here.
Context
and over
versus administrative.
Right,
Correct.
but what I'm also asking is because we've got land that's being sold and developers are believing they are going with one company when they are in actuality going with a different company, they just don't know that. So I would like to get that clarification.
So why don't you,
I'm just trying to get, it's just
Well,
trying to
I'll
get
tell
a
you
hold of
this,
some
and
people.
to give you some encouragement and protect us, as those developers are looking at our comprehensive plan map beside
That's
Untitled
why-
Water, that's their problem.
I understand,
We do need to make it right, but those guys probably, or those girls or whoever, probably have another job than being a developer if they're looking at a city's comprehensive map for to pay water. That's all on them, and we don't have any liability, but I agree with you, it needs to be right. I want y'all to sleep well tonight, so I wanted to let you know.
but I also understand that we may have some issues. I just don't want us to not know about certain things.
Mr. Crowley?
Yeah, we can work on getting that map corrected. One comment that I wanted to make about it, and I know the council's aware of this, but sometimes it becomes a point of confusion. If this ordinance is adopted, that basically adopts this plan by local ordinance or law, it is our comprehensive plan. That's what it does. What it does not do is make every recommendation in that plan the law and something that developers must follow. You have to look to your zoning ordinance, your development, your subdivision regulations, and other ordinances for those particular details. And many times, councils will have people appear before them and say, our comprehensive plan says you have to A, B, C, when that A, B, and C may have been a recommendation of that plan. So it's important to keep that in mind. By law, this is our plan, but every recommendation is not adopted by law based on the action that you take to adopt.
And that's actually a really, really good point, because, and and the only reason I'm bringing this up, because I'm making a point, okay? But 213003, A and B cover amending comprehensive plans. And so that's just not throwing out a rule, but it's the reason I do that is, because A says, look, if the city wants to amend a comprehensive plan, gotta be voted on, and you have to have a public hearing. The subsection B, that's completely different. A city can adopt, either by charter provision or by an ordinance, any process or procedure they want to amend their comprehensive plan. So if their ordinance require, like we're general law, so we don't have a charter, but if our ordinance lays out, this is our procedure for adopting an amendment to a comp plan, and public hearing is not in it, that's okay, as long as our procedure is laid out. So what Rick is saying, just because it may be a recommendation, if it's not, unless there's something in, let's say we did adopt an ordinance and our procedure says any recommendation from P&Z that's not approved by council means that we can't adopt a comp plan or something crazy like that, then that would be the law. But he makes a very good point. Just because somebody recommends something, unless it's actually adopted into the ordinance by the council, it's not there. And so the point here is, I'm not aware of any ordinance that lays out the procedure. So it's a very, very broad swath that state law cuts for us in amending our comp plan. Just a public hearing, and council votes on it. And that's what we're doing. So we're not hamstrung in that case by a bunch of rules, regulations, and this, that, and whatnot. So only what we adopt are our rules.
Anything else, Trudy? Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor, and we've had a discussion, so we'll take the vote. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance for the 2021-2040 comprehensive plan, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Well, we're going to just segue over to item 8.10. We're going to skip to that since it also has to deal with the comprehensive plan. And this is a recommendation by P&Z Commission regarding a review of the recently adopted comprehensive plan related to policies and ordinances potentially affected by the adoption of the 2021 comprehensive plan. And is that Mr.
Well,
Mr.
I will
Crowley?
start, and then Mark may have some additions to it. And this is a circumstance where there are some recommendations that are made in the plan that the Planning and Zoning Commission saw the need to have translated into the potential for changing, for making some amendments to the zoning ordinance and perhaps some development regulations. And so this is moved forward in terms of implementing that plan and looking at changing those ordinances to be more compliant with the plan. So they've recommended that to the council that we move forward with that, and I'll let him or others talk about that. One of the things that's included in the plan is an implementation section which divides implementation strategies into immediate, I may get the words wrong, but immediate and midterm and longer term. And this is one of those that is midterm in its more comprehensive level. But staff-wise, we'd be happy to begin working with the Planning and Zoning Commission to bring back some of those changes. It may be that some of those can be made fairly routinely and easily in those ordinances, and it may be that others are more technical, that we might have to come back to the council to ask for some assistance from the outside to make sure that we get those done, properly. But before we started working with them, and it was my recommendation to them that we talk to the council first and let you guys direct the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission move forward if you see fit to do so.
Anyone have any comments? Dan, you were on P&Z. What do you think that's a good way to go?
Yeah, when I was on P&Z, we had a lot of discussion. There's good leadership there now as there was before. I think that they can delve into these problems and kind of decipher and digest them and give us some informations on them and make recommendations. And I think based on that, we'll be able to make some decisions ourselves.
So,
They're the group to do it.
yeah. So we direct the staff because the P and Z suggested to us that we address it. So we're addressing it by passing it back down to you and to P and Z. It seems a bit of a
Well,
tail chase there.
It sort of is. On the other hand, my interest in that was making sure that the council is aware of what the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission are working together on. Sort of a same team thing.
Yeah.
That directing us to do that won't surprise you then when staff and Planning and Zoning Commission come back with some recommendations, some of which we may be able to make immediately, others we may have to allocate some funding for if we need assistance with those. So
Yeah.
it's basically just, let's all get on the same page. Some of these need to be made. We're all aware of that. We're working on that. And then when it comes time to make those, I think we'll all be in a better position to move forward with that. And I know Mr. Gibbet may have some thoughts on it, and if his are contrary to mine, I certainly think you ought to hear from him either way.
Do you have anything, Mark?
Make sure you turn on the mic.
And plus, since you were one of the authors of the comp plan.
Mark Hippett, 31 Fireside. So I'm a member of I'm a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Rewrite, Citizens Committee for the rewrite. What we have want to make sure is the comprehensive plan changes the vector of the city moving forward, specifically around development, and to include preservation of green spaces and the desire to maintain a rural atmosphere within McLendon-Chisholm. We want to make sure that our ordinances are properly aligned. We've identified with Stephen, with Trilogy, the potential for some disconnects between the PD and the ordinance as written around public safety. It's a discussion, and so what we want to do is make sure that as we've implemented the plan now, to make sure the ordinances are fully lined up with that plan, specifically around all of those that govern development, specific, for development, to make sure that we have the right language in there to guide developers.
So I guess we'll just start looking at the ordinances then, and then concurrently look at the.
I would expect this would be a series of work sessions with the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
These, identify those
planner.
issues and then deal with them one at a time and then bring back report.
I mean,
Okay.
from the Planning and Zoning Commission perspective, we did not feel we had the authority to direct staff. So that's the purpose of the recommendation to council, was to get council to direct staff to undertake that, and then we'll work with staff to where we can do it internally and where it has to be done externally, as Mr. Crowley highlighted. Then they'll come back, I guess, to council as necessary for those resources.
I think neither the Planning and Zoning Commission, if I could speak for them as Mark has, or the staff wants to come back wants the council to ever ask the question, what are you guys doing?
Okay.
So just wanted to be sure we're all on the same page with that.
Well, I think we're all on the same page. So, I'd like to suggest that we do ask staff and Plan and Zoning to do work sessions and come up with a game plan to scrub our ordinances as they related to the comprehensive plan, and then also look at the various tasks, the ones that are short-term, near-term, and long-term, and see what can be done in-house and see what we need to do by potential additional resources outside of the city. How does everybody feel about that? I don't think we really need a motion for that. It's basically direction to staff.
Take that direction.
Thank you. Thank you. The most complicated, but the most easy thing we've done all day. All right, we're gonna go over to item 8.6, discussion and direction regarding accepting application for new Board of Adjustment alternate members. I've got Ms. Green and Ms. Stibbins from the BOA here. If either one of you like to speak, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Bev Stibbins, and I live at 279 Partridge Drive, and I am here tonight as the Chair of the Board of Adjustments. I wanted to share with you how our board is made up and a situation we just had recently arise. We are a board of 5 with 2 alternates. We currently have 5 and 1 alternate. To hold a Board of Adjustments meeting, we must have 4 members present, unlike your quorum of 3. If we only have 4 members present, it has to be a unanimous vote to pass. It cannot be a 3-to-1. Recently, we had a request come before us. The first meeting was called, and due to illness and other issues, we did not have a quorum. So the meeting had to be rescheduled. It was rescheduled for 3 weeks later. 3 weeks later comes, we have 4 members that show up. We had the city secretary call the other 2 to see if they could join us. 1 responded she was not available, 1 did not answer. Therefore, as the chairman of the Board of Adjustments, I had the privilege of saying to the applicant, if you would like us to postpone this, we can, because you're going to have a 4 positive vote. If you want to gamble, we can have this meeting tonight. They opted to postpone the meeting. 1 week later, we rescheduled the meeting. The city secretary was very diligent, and I thank her for that, of making sure that we had a quorum in place. With only 1 alternate, it is very difficult sometimes with lives to get the 4 to 5 people present that we need. So we would like to ask you to please fill our last alternate vacancy.
You are allowed to appoint 4 alternates. I did read in the description of the board, and you are allowed to appoint 4.
Okay.
So maybe 3 is a good number,
3 would be a great number.
and we have just 1.
We currently have
So we
1.
need to put an ad out for 2. We need to put an ad out for 2, 2 additional alternate members.
So
Yes.
can we go back to when we did have applicants come in, and we had a few applicants that were not chosen? Can we go back to those applicants and ask them if they would still be interested, and then also put it out there just so that, I mean, I was kind of wanting to do that anyway. I just kind of got.
I did go back and look at what we had, and when we took applications, we had them mark P&Z or Board of Adjustment. When we were able to, more wanted on P&Z, so we were able to fill P&Z. A couple I called and said, would you be interested in going on to Board of Adjustment? They did not want to. Okay. One of them has a relative on the board already, so we prefer not to put that person on, simply for that reason. I did have 1 applicant who did not qualify because she had not lived in the city long enough, and she still is not long enough.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, no, we don't have any
Okay.
to look at.
All right.
So we need to get some new applicants. So if y'all have friends that you think would be interested in that, council members, shake the bushes. In the meantime, we'll put an ad out on our website for 2 alternates. Okay. All right, we'll move over to, thank you, Beth. Move to item 8.7. This is a requested by Councilmember Tucker to discuss regarding a discussion regarding warning sirens.
So this is an issue that's been around, and the city council has looked at this in the past. It's been shelved on a number of occasions. Certainly, when I was running a campaign back in May, it was an issue that came up, and I found it to be well received by the general public. I think that it needs to be looked at again. I would like to look at it again and see what kind of system that we can implement, whether it's a siren, whether it's some kind of digital kind of notification. But I'd like to push this thing forward so we get to an endpoint where we've made a decision that satisfies folks. It's continually being shulled is not solving a problem, and so I want some kind of edification, hopefully from the chief, in terms of where we can go on this, what we can expect from the county in terms of assistance. We had spoken to them before, and so maybe just to get the ball rolling on this and get some kind of final answer within the next 6 months, I would hope.
What did the county say?
Well, I'm going to defer this at this point to the chief, because he's the man who is the expert in this area, and we've had numerous conversations, and I keep dogging him on this thing, so.
So wouldn't say expert, but we've talked
Yeah,
about this. This has been on topic for about a year and a half. maybe a little
Probably
bit
3
longer.
years.
Really got heavy about a year and a half ago when we started pulling some numbers in and some maps. And I know there's been some discussion, but it's never been pushed forward for whatever reason. So the last time we talked, the county, or Commissioner Bailey spoke with him in regards to, there was a mention of their tower. They have a tower there at 205 and League Road, which is a radio tower, and that we might be able to look at seeing if that was a feasible place to put a siren, if council was decide to move forward with this project, that we could see about putting one of the sirens there. Is it saving a lot of money? To be honest with you, not really, but it is an option. You know, if you went back, and of course we didn't bring the maps out, but if you went back, we had 2 initially located. One was here at the new station, one was the station. We placed the main base there. And then we looked at putting one on the backside of Sonoma Verde. We spoke to the developers back in the beginning of this years ago. They showed interest in wanting to work with the city to be able to possibly them install that particular sign. The city would take care of the initial, they would take care of that one. Again, it's brought up, and then we kind of let it just lie. So after talking to Councilmember Tucker, I said, he mentioned it to me 2 weeks ago about, let's bring this back up, let's conversation. And my response back, we need to just start over. Pricing's obviously going to change. Need to know if this is something that council really would like to push forward, or would council like for staff to come up with other options. You know, my stance on the sirens, they're good, but they're not great because they're designed for outdoor use. Maybe we push some type of app program, because there's so many of them out there. And maybe we put things on our city website and stuff like that for citizens to use. But also speaking with Mr. Crowley about, we really need to come up with a plan. If council wants to do this, we want to do the sirens, there's many things that we need to sit down and discuss when it comes to policies and when it comes to how it's activated, who activates it, when we test them. So there's a lot that needs to be put into play to move this forward. So basically just asking council, with the assistance of Mr. Tucker, what direction would you like for us to go? Would you like for us to start over with the, looking into the cost of it, or coming up with possibly other options, as Mr. Tucker said, maybe some type of app or something?
How is an app different than what Nixle is?
It'd be along the same line. We wouldn't own an app, but we would put context there. Mr. Crowley, anytime I know you've got a lot of experience in this previously.
Well, of course, the function of sirens is to tell people who are outside that they need to get in. It'll never wake anybody. It shouldn't ever wake anybody up that's asleep in bed. If it does, it's probably going to break some windows somewhere. And I've had some personal experience with breaking windows from some of the sirens that have been installed. But generally, it's an outside warning, warn people who are outside to get inside and take cover of an event that's coming. On the other hand, there are apps and things that are better, since you've got your cell phone or whatever these days, that can wake you up in bed and let you know something when you're sleeping, let you know that something's coming. So they're basically two different functions. But once you have the outdoor sirens, or if you're in charge of setting off the device in your home that's going to wake you in bed or let you know if you're on the inside, there's a whole group of policies that this council would need to adopt to determine when you set those off. You have to have those policies. You've also got to leave the leeway for those who are looking at the storm or looking at the situation to have some leeway in making those decisions. But I will tell you that after every storm, once you have those, at least for a while, after every storm, once you have those sirens, there are a lot of experts in your community about whether you should have set that off or whether you shouldn't have set it off. So it's important to look at those and have them based on, once you have the sirens, have them based on what you're comfortable with, because it's going to get a lot of critique after the first storm. So I think it would be good for us to go back and let the chief relook at those prices, look at our coverage maps, and perhaps bring back to the council some other alternatives on how we might fund those or partially fund them in the future.
I think it would be a good idea to have the council have staff recommendations, because as both the chief and Rick said, there's a lot I agree with. I mean, everybody knows winds in excess of 70 miles an hour, chemical spills, tornado, obviously, these types of things. And so if you've got the sirens, as they've already said, they're not intended. So it's very important. It's not just whether or not heard inside. No, they're not intended on purpose. We don't want people to hear them inside. Windows, and you get people like they're going to complain. I don't care about windows 70 miles. Oh, sleep. It's 2:30 in the morning. I have to get up and work the next morning. They're going to be gone by then. Or I don't care about a chemical spill. Or I don't care about this, that, or whatnot. See, it's a lot of stuff, quote unquote, to take into account when you're doing this. And most cities recommend monthly testing of the systems. And so, how expensive is that going to get? I think we kind of have an idea generally of two, and there are, anytime, I don't even remember exactly how the old adage was, but every time you had new technology, there was a new lawsuit. Just something to that effect, because you've got something new, and Rick is absolutely right. Anything you do, it's going to be critiqued. So having some sort of policy, rules, regulations about when we test and this, that, or whatnot, I kind of, we trust our staff to make recommendations, and at times our staff, we have to give an opinion on things. Going the siren route or maybe the app route, I think having an opinion on that, and then just council making two little mini presentations, if you will, having the council rely upon those, right, whichever one the staff recommends, and the council can still decide. It's still a decision, but you get a recommendation from staff, and then that at least, that's the first step, because now you at least have, there's two really big paths, and they're completely divergent. Sirens, completely different from apps. But now at this point, once council's heard presentations and made a decision, now you've at least cut your issue in half. You're either going this route or that route. I think that's probably some place to start.
May I speak? We've been through this before, and I have written down, I think Chief and I've actually spoke about this a couple of times. But my viewpoint is I would like to see us get a plan together on what it does cost. But when, I'm just going to say this again, when developers come in, the first thing they're asking is, what do y'all want? Well, I would love for them to pay for it. I don't want to pay for it as a city. I don't feel like again, there's too many ifs, ands, or buts, and I think that if the community wants it, then and the developers are asking, what do we need, then make them pay for that, and we'll have the information for them, if we get it together. But I don't know what else. I just don't think that we need to pay for something like that when we've got our phones, and even I've spoken to other farmers, and they're like, I have my phone. I don't need something to tell me.
It's one of the most active tools out there. Sorry, I know you're. No. I have two different apps.
Yeah.
Underground Weather, and I have the WAP.
Yeah.
And those are the most active resources. And my phone never loses signal during a storm. My TV will, and everything else, but my phone never does.
Yeah.
And in this thing, this is where it's become
where's it gonna go, right?
And very briefly too, I think there's a yes and a no to getting developers to pay for the sirens, because you've got to worry about an exaction. If there's not a nexus, a connection that's reasonable and logical between what you're asking the developer to pay for and their development, then it would be an illegal exaction. And I think maybe, but you're not totally off base, because I think if you want to require, say, a siren, a development that's going to be built over X amount of size, you might be, I think you could probably require that developer to put a siren in for their development. I think we could maybe do that if we put it into place and then go back beforehand, et cetera, et cetera. But
Well-
to implement the whole siren system in the city, I don't know what we do.
No, I just meant that if they're asking, what do we need? And in my opinion, why start something if somebody else is willing to start it for us?
Yeah,
In
and-
other words, if they want to do that, but I'm just saying, if I had to spend my money, that wouldn't be something I would spend my city money on.
And you know, I think there are ways to avoid exaction by, for example, doing a plan, and we can do that plan in-house that would show where sirens are going to be located when the city is fully developed. We know the cost of those sirens and can update it periodically. We know from our comp plan about how many homes are going to be in each of those service areas. So we could come up with a cost per home when either building permits or when developments are approved, and get them to make those payments to the city and hold that for use when we do siren. The only thing is, very seldom is a whole area going to develop at one time. So it helps pay for it, and we'll pay for it over time, but there'd be times when you might have to front the other half of that to make that work. But I think you can do a plan like that and be able to not only avoid a legal exaction, but also feel good about the fee that you might put in place.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to just go ahead and start with directing staff to go ahead and resurface the issue and give us a cost estimate on the way the city is currently laid out, what it would cost, and the options. Because I'm not totally convinced that a siren system is the way to go either, because if it requires human interface to get it going, and we only have 3 guys on duty at any one time, I just know that I don't know that we have the manpower the qualified manpower to do that.
And again,
But the one miss is.
yeah, yeah.
Well, what I'm hearing is, right, I'm hearing like the chief sounds like he's a little partial to the notification system. I mean, it is, and it does make a little bit more sense because it will reach more people, and you will be able to, kind of like what Councilman Davis was saying, it opens up more, you can use it for more than just, hey, we need to throw a set-top tower, we got a chemical spill, there's, you can use it for a lot more than that. So would it be a better use of fiscal funds to sink money into something you can get more uses out of it than just the warning system versus the siren?
That was the point I was going to make, is capabilities other than cost. Driving from McKinney every day, I rely on the fact that I am subscribed to Rockwall's notification system. And I love to get the heads up when I'm on George Bush that I-30 has just had an accident, so that I can divert across 66 and come up the backside. We have one main drag, 205 here. We have accidents that happen on 205. If we had a notification system, I think that's huge in terms of alleviating that traffic. If people had those notifications pushed to them to take alternative routes, I think that's a better use of money. Not just money, but
Well, you combine multiple things into one.
Yeah, and that's what the heat system, that's what they're.
Well, we need to look into it. I didn't get the full details, but we were talking about that.
I like what Councilmember Davis said, is exactly what I said.
I like short and sweet.
So,
You know, on this, all I can say is I don't have a bias necessarily towards what system we implement. what I would like is to have staff look into the cost, look into options.
Options, yeah.
And then once we have options and we have, credible information that's exhaustive, we have several experts up here to help us out in that regard. I just want to put this issue to bed, and get some satisfaction out there for the folks and have a reasonable explanation as to why we made a decision one way or the other. That's really what I'm looking for.
Seems good.
I think we can take that as direction based on
Please.
what everyone has said.
Please.
Thank you.
Somebody's phone's ringing. Okay, item 8.8, consider a proposal to create a land bank and dedicate a percentage of revenue towards funding. Mr. Tucker, over to you.
Yeah, this is, just kind of brainstorming one day and came up with this possibility of promoting a land bank. And again, going back to the campaigns back in April and May, and it's been an ongoing subject of concern with citizens, is that they want open spaces. And so open spaces is always a point of conversation, and there's a lot of conflict, it seems, how we get to that endpoint. When people ask me about open spaces, many times, I think I've spoken to some of the city council members on this, is that the open spaces that people have when they look out their backyard is subsidized by the owner of that open space. And so, given time, preserving open space here is going to become more and more complicated. And so, looking at some kind of a land bank, now I'm going to talk about economic development corporations as maybe an alternative to this, but there are different ways of preserving property for open space. You can, through donations, I suppose, of property owners. You can zone with limitations so that developers can contribute towards the concept. I know that Trilogy is trying to do that. And then we can go through land purchases. And looking at, I did a little law review, and I hope it passes Mr. Holla's course here. But apparently, an urban land bank program is covered in the Local Government Codes, Chapter 379E. And so the definition of a land bank, it's an entity established or approved by the governing body of a municipality for the purpose of acquiring, holding, and transferring unimproved real property under this chapter. Now, this particular chapter had to do a lot with tax liens, housing development, that kind of thing. But the definition, I think, is pertinent. If you go to Local Government Code 271, in 271.002, they define it also as the legislature defines that the purchase of other acquisition or the use of property by governmental agencies and the financing of those activities are necessary to the efficient and economic operation of a government. So it seems like in law that we could organize some kind of a agency and fund it in a couple different fashions to start purchasing property. We have 40 acres next door to us that's owned by ISD, and I don't know if they really do plan on building a school over there or not, but it's an attractive piece of property that if we start to fund a land bank of some sort, we may be able to coerce or convince them that it would be more appropriate for them to sell that property to us. I mean, like I said, it's a thought process that I've been playing around with and entertaining. Now, I'm not too sure about, I see the capacity in the law to be able to do this, but as far as the mechanism behind it, I'm not too knowledgeable. There is the economic development corporations that exist for individual cities, and I think within that a corporation, whether it's a type A or type B, preferably probably B, we could also do the same thing, is set up some kind of a land bank agency where we start looking. I know that standard service here was a joint project that was entertained by the city of Heath and a private business. And I believe Heath owned the property, and they encouraged the builder to come in with certain incentives. And so this kind of a mutual kind of project that would benefit the city and its population, I think would be enormous. And I think we need to start thinking in these terms in order to start really working at preserving, land spaces here. Otherwise, they're just going to be developed out, and what we may have wanted, we will have missed the moment. So, Mr. Holla, I would ask you to give me some clarification on if what I'm talking about is true to the law, to the spirit of the law. And that's perfectly fine. This is an exploratory issue for me at this point, and I'm, trying to present it before the committee and the council.
I would say that I understand Dan's point, and obviously we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of developing or holding open space properties. Rick, you probably have a lot of experience with this. Is there a good way to do that? Is there a better way to do it than what we're talking about here?
I understand so much more about this agenda item after Mr. Tucker's explanation of it and the discussion that we had. And yeah, I think and I frankly have not worked into that particular section, but would like the opportunity to look into that, as our city attorney has said, as well as you mentioned Type A and Type B development corporations, and I think that's something you might want to start looking at as your sales tax increases. If that happens in McLendon-Chisholm, then that becomes a bigger source of potential revenue if you want to dedicate part of that to either a type A or type B economic development corporation. So I would look forward actually to looking into to those things as relates to open space and its preservation. I think also there's some things that you can do in your subdivision regulations and your development ordinances that help you preserve some of that, some of those properties by one, tree preservation and which you already have an ordinance on, as well as floodplains and creeks and so forth within the community. And I think that's another way to look at preserving some of those spaces. But I personally would enjoy looking into that with our staff and so forth. And as I say, understand that item so much better after hearing the explanation than what I did before.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some kind of mechanism that will allow us to actually purchase property if we have that available to us. And whether it's through, this mechanism or some other, I really don't know about.
I'd like to put together some things to come back for options for
That'd
y'all
be
to
great.
look at and do it. And I think, as far as tax sales for delinquent taxes, there are not very many of those in Rockwall County. They do happen occasionally. When they do, the entity that has the most taxes against it is the lead in that case, and that's almost always the school district because their taxes are generally higher than the cities that are involved. But we have made some deals with them, or you could consider making some deals with them to give you the option of buying those if it happens. Anything that's got a mortgage on it and a lien on it, that lien holder will step in and won't let that go to tax sale. But there are occasions when some of those pieces come up in Rockwall County. Not many, but there are a few. We ought to be prepared.
Well, I think it'll be good if you work with Mr. Crowley and.
Gladly. Yeah, I look forward to it.
That would too.
That's great.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8.9. Discuss and consider a process for developing plans for roadway maintenance projects in the city and take necessary action. And this has been requested by Mr. Crowley.
And I brought this item forward because of the discussions with each of you or individuals on the council about your desire to move forward with making some roadway improvements and doing some substantial maintenance projects on some of our public roadway. So all this is a process that I propose to use to get you back information so you can decide how much of that you want to be, how much it's going to cost, and can make the determinations about which roadways we might want to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Looking at your staff memo, I think you're recommending that we ask you to have the city engineer, Chief Simmons, and the county road and bridge engineer work together to do an initial evaluation of our public streets, then provide a recommendation of what type work each street needs, then give us a cost estimate, and then report the findings back to us.
That's right.
Is everyone agreeable to that
Yes.
approach?
And I'd like to kind of grade whatever, prioritize, obviously.
Yeah.
I just would like to recommend that when you do that, that you would consider the weather too. There are some things that are not as obvious when it hasn't rained versus when it has rained. There's things that are totally blind to the eye until after we had a good pour down, and you can actually see some potential priorities that's not really visible when there's not has been any rain.
And Norman, since you know of several incidences in Sonoma Verde, if you could get those to Mr. Crowley.
Yes,
Get
right in
those
front of my home.
Yeah, give him those
As an
specific
example.
streets.
Okay.
That would be great. Any other comments?
And this will include, like, what streets that we have.
Phase 1 and Phase 2 in Sonoma Verde, plus the ones in the city that we have recently acquired.
Okay, so
You've
we got that in writing that those are ours before we.
Yeah, you've got, I don't know the number, 7 or 8 roadways in the city that I think are unquestionably ours, public roadways. And so I would want to focus on the public streets, and I know several of them would require considerable work.
As long as we've got those in writing, that those are ours, not just we've been told they're ours.
Right. We need to concentrate on public streets, and if there's a move to do anything other than that, one, I think, the council would need to direct us to focus on streets that are not public. And second, the city attorney should advise us on what our limitations might be to work on streets that are not public.
Yeah, I think we have our hands full with public roads
Yeah.
at this point.
I think you're right.
Yes.
Okay, before we go into executive session, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit more and jump down to, number 11. And I'd like to see if any, council members have any reports or announcements, and then I'll finish up. So, Trudy, do you have any announcements?
We just had our annual Christmas tree lighting, and it went really well, I guess, is what everybody's telling me. It was a lot of fun, and missed a lot of y'all, but we got a lot of new faces, which was awesome. Last year I opened up our letters to Santa, and I probably had about 10 or 11 letters. This one, it was so full I couldn't hardly get them out. So it was awesome, and I had so many new people come up to me and just tell me where they lived, or just talk to them and how appreciative they were and how awesome. And some of our former councils showed up, and brought their children, and also complimented us on all that we had going on, and it was very nice. It was very nice. Good weather. Santa has a bum leg. But he's okay. He is hard. He's working very hard. Yeah. So, and I plan on the letters that I did receive. I'm going to, if they put their name and address on them, Santa is going to write a letter stating that he received their letter along, and send that letter back to the family. So they will have that as a keepsake if they would like. And then those are just some of them that just have like Mary on it. I can't do that too, and I don't have an address for Mary. But the ones that I do have, I have a pretty good stack of with the ones with the addresses on them. And it was really cool. It was a very nice event.
Thank you very much.
We did have a little switch problem, but other than that,
Yes.
we have to get our electrician out here to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to applaud you for all the effort you put into this thing, because I could see it from the background, and you are the right person at the right time for the right
Yeah,
job.
thank you,
I mean,
thank you,
outstanding.
Thank you.
Yes,
It was
that's really
fun. It
very
was a
nice.
lot of fun. It really was. But I missed some of my elves that couldn't be here in the darn meetings that they made y'all go to. Yep, that's all good.
I had a meeting after the meeting. Thank you for putting that on those also.
Dan, anything?
No.
Norman? Well, I'm going to take a little bit of time because I get the gavel today, and speaking with Mayor Short, and this being the last meeting for 2021, I wanted to thank our city staff for their efforts this past year. We've got 4 city employees. I don't know if everybody out there knows that we only have 4 city employees, not counting the chief and the fire department. And their work efforts contribute 100% to our success. So starting with Judy Rhodes, Judy is the first face of our city that people see when they come to City Hall. We're very, very grateful for her diligent efforts as it relates to permit issuance and coordination with our city engineer, our city planner, and our city inspector. Judy makes the job look easy, but hearing from the other staff members, she's got the toughest job of all. Then we have Mark Woodruff, our recently hired code enforcement officer, who just started last year, and he's already cleaned the city up, if you haven't noticed. He's held community cleanup events on his own initiative, working with various communities, and he did a separate cleanup event, cleaning up 550 and 205. And he's actually cleaned up places in the city that have had standing complaints for 10 years. So his workload has increased substantially, and that's why we voted to go full-time with him this year. Shelley Green, our city secretary, has worn many hats this year besides city secretary. She's our court administrator, and she's also our technology gal, much to her dismay. I know, I say that in quotes. The upgrade of the City Hall AV capabilities was handled by Shelley, which caused her some gray hair, I'm sure. Chief Simmons, besides overseeing the 14-man, 24/7 fire department, Chief has worked fire marshal issues to include arsons, code enforcement issues, and the building of the beautiful facility across the street. Chief is our guy Friday, and we can't thank him enough for the work that he's done and his constant positive approach. We've been blessed with an interim city administrator, Mr. Rick Crowley, to guide us through these next few months with the resignation of Ms. Palumba. Lisa did a great job for us, and we're so thankful that Mr. Crowley has decided to see us into the next few months and see us forward in 2022. And then finally, our precious first responders. We can't thank the Rockwell County Sheriff enough for responding to our emergency calls. We don't have our own police department, as we all know, and it's very comforting to know we can reach out to the sheriff when need be. And finally, to the MCFD, many citizens out there still think we have a part-time volunteer fire department. That's not true. We have professional firefighters on our force, primarily full-time with some part-time and only 1 or 2 volunteers, I think. With the new station across from my house, and I hope I don't get choked up about this, but every time I hear the guys dispatched on a call, I say a silent prayer for their safety. They're our pride and joy, and they work hard to keep us safe and in our homes and on our streets. And thank you to Mr. Coker, Mr. Attorney Man, Mr. Holla, our city engineer, and our city inspector, and our city environmental specialist. You guys make us all look good, and we wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and we wish the citizens out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's make 2022 even better. So thank you very much. Now we're going to move into executive session at 8 o'clock. Thank you. Huh?
Very nice.
You know I like a speech.
That's it. I think I opened it. Yeah, I opened it. Some background, and this is some of those codes I was citing. So that's about.
8:41, I'll reconvene the regular section of the meeting. No action was taken. Updates, direction to staff, anything for anyone?
Conference room chairs, get those repaired.
All right, the time is now 8:42. The meeting is adjourned, and we will see you next year. Merry ho ho.